This happened 5 years ago. I was 32 and thought a veteran's retreat would help me find peace from my PTSD. It was deep in the woods, just an old cabin surrounded by tall trees. I had never gone this far into the wilderness before. I figured nothing could bother me anymore. I was wrong. When I arrived, it was quiet. The cabin creaked as I walked inside. The flickering lights made shadows dance on the walls. Other veterans were there, but I didn't talk much. Maybe I didn't want to, or maybe I was just nervous. But the anxiety came back stronger than I expected. On the first night, it happened. Around midnight, I heard gunfire in the distance. It didn't make sense. I thought maybe I imagined it. My heart raced as I listened. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but it wasn't nothing. The gunfire kept coming, like a memory I couldn't shake. I got up and walked outside, thinking I might figure it out. Maybe I shouldn't have. The trees felt big and close around me, whispering with night sounds I didn't recognize. I felt cold. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that something was out there. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me again. I was starting to doubt myself. As the nights passed, strange things happened. I heard whispers flowing through the trees, almost like they were trying to speak. Other veterans looked uneasy too. They jumped at the smallest sounds. I felt confused. I wanted to ask them what they heard, but every time I opened my mouth, fear gripped my throat. Each moment felt heavy with something unspoken. One night I decided I had to find out. I stepped outside again. The moonlight was pale, making everything look ghostly. My heart raced again, pounding in my chest. I heard leaves rustling behind me. A shadow moved just beyond the tree line. I looked around, but there was nothing there, just the trees. Watching. Chill crawled up my spine. I think I called out, "Is anyone there?" But it came out as a whisper. No answer. Then I thought I saw someone standing just at the edge of the light. He didn't move, just stared at me. I stepped closer, trying to see his face, but he stayed in the dark. Then he spoke, his voice low and strange. "What are you afraid of?" I took a step back. I spun around. Shadows pressed in closer, but nothing was there. Maybe it was my mind, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I turned to run back to the cabin. The feeling of being watched didn't leave me. The truth of that night still haunts me. What was it that watched us from the trees? Maybe I'll never know. I still hear those whispers sometimes. It makes me wonder. I barely slept that night. I tossed and turned, haunted by the shadow's gaze and those unsettling words. Morning came, but I felt more drained than ever. The cabin was alive, with other veterans stirring, but I was lost in my head. Anxiety clung to me like a heavy blanket. After breakfast, I noticed some of the others gathering near the old fire pit. I felt a pull to join them, even if I didn't know what to say. I walked over, and they were discussing their own experiences. Everyone spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting toward the trees as if expecting the shadows to listen. "Did you hear anything last night?" one veteran asked, his brow furrowed. I felt a jolt of recognition. I wasn't alone in my fear. "I thought I heard gunfire," another replied, looking away. "And whispers." The pieces clicked together. Everyone had felt it. The tension hung thick in the air. I opened my mouth to contribute, but nothing came out, just the hum of uncertainty. When a silence fell over the group, I finally found my voice. "Did anyone see anything?" They turned to me. I could feel their gazes weighing heavy. "Just shadows," one said carefully. "But there's something off about this place. It feels wrong." As the conversation faded, I made a decision. I couldn't let my fear paralyze me. I wanted answers. I would go back into the woods. I didn't know why I felt compelled to seek whatever lurked there, but the need burned through my chest. Around midday, I slipped away from the group. The forest was thick with trees, their gnarled branches twisting like fingers wanting to reach out. I walked cautiously, every crack of a twig underneath my boots sending a jolt through me. Yet, I pressed on. The deeper I went, the quieter it became. The chirping of birds faded. replaced by an eerie silence that made my skin crawl. I focused on the ground, scanning for anything out of place. My heart raced, and I thought again about that shadow. Then, everything changed. I stumbled upon a small clearing. In the center lay a weathered wooden sign, half buried and barely legible. I strained to read it, my breath hitching as I made out the words, "Marine checkpoint, do not enter." Panic surged within me, mixing with dread. Why was this here? I backed away slowly, glancing around the trees like they held answers. And then I heard it again, whispers, clearer this time, curling around the branches. It sounded like my name, soft and almost pleading. I felt paralyzed, caught between running back to the cabin and staying to listen. It grew louder, repeating my name, mixed with frantic warnings. "Get out! Leave now!" That's when I saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the woods just outside the clearing. It wore an old military uniform, but it was faded and torn, as if it had been there for years. I took a step back, my heart pounding, and before I could think, I turned to run. Branches whacked against my arms as I pushed through the underbrush. I couldn't shake the feeling of being pursued. The whispers echoed in my ears. They demanded me to stop, to face whatever haunted this place. But I couldn't. I had to get away. As I neared the cabin, I could hear the others talking, but it felt distant now. I burst through the door, gasping for breath. I was shaking, my body looking for refuge. And that's when I realized I had brought something back with me. The whispers had followed. With a dread-filled gaze, I turned around and felt something brush past me, like a chilling breeze around my shoulders. But there was no one there. Just the haunting quiet of the cabin. I was not alone. The chill in the cabin clung to me like an unwelcome guest. I could almost feel the whispers swirling around the room, teasing me with their half-formed words. The veterans stared back at me, their faces a blend of concern and a strange kind of curiosity. "Are you okay?" one of them asked. His name was Mark. I remembered he also had a haunted look in his eyes, like he was grappling with ghosts of his own. I struggled to find words, but they slipped away. My mind was racing, replaying the moments in the woods. I needed to tell them, to warn them, but fear glued my tongue in place. I think something is out there," I finally managed to say, my voice more fragile than I intended. The others exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from concern to something that resembled disbelief. "You're not serious," another veteran scoffed. "It's just your mind playing tricks." "No," I insisted, my voice rising. "I felt it. There was a figure, a ghost or something, I'm sure of it." The word ghost hung in the air, and a thick tension followed. Mark stepped closer. "What do you mean a figure? You saw someone?" He was trying to understand, maybe even relate. I could see it in his eyes. I nodded, the memory sending another shiver down my spine. He was in a military uniform, old and torn. He was trying to tell me something. "Tell you what?" someone else asked, voice cautious yet intrigued. The sinking realization hit me. I didn't know what he'd wanted to convey, only that the urgency in his presence pushed me in a direction I didn't want to consider. I hesitated. I think it was warning me. Maybe warning all of us. The room fell silent as they absorbed my words. I barely felt the weight of their stares. My thoughts were already spiraling back to that clearing. The checkpoint sign had felt like a boundary, a warning etched in wood. Who had been there? Why were they stationed in the woods like that? "I need to go back," I whispered, more to myself than to anyone else. "Are you crazy?" Mark shot back, shaking his head. "You can't just go wandering back into those woods after what you saw." His voice dripped with concern, but I felt the need pulsing within me again. I had to know. I have to. Maybe I can figure this out. "I'm coming with you," Mark said suddenly. The determination in his tone surprised me. "You shouldn't go alone." I looked at him, surprised by his willingness. "Why would you risk it?" "Because I can't let you do this if you're scared. And clearly, you're not the only one uneasy." He motioned towards the others. A few nodded, as if they too felt the pull to confront the mystery that lived in the woods. They made me feel less alone. And as the adrenaline surged through my veins, I felt a flicker of hope that we might uncover the truth together. Time passed as the sun dipped lower. Shadows lengthened outside and the air grew heavy. The whispers were still there, lurking just out of reach. I could almost hear them calling again, urging me to return. I felt it deep inside me, a promise that I had to keep. But as we gathered our things, preparing for another foray into the dark, an unsettling thought crossed my mind. If the whispers followed me back to the cabin, what would they do when we returned to the forest? Then a sudden noise broke the silence, a loud crack from outside like something heavy had fallen. The entire room went still. My heart thudded against my chest. I glanced at the window, dread pooling in my stomach. What if something was watching us? What had I dragged back with me? That chilling feeling returned stronger than before. I stood frozen, staring into the increasing darkness. And then, without warning, the cabin door swung open, creaking ominously as if inviting something in. Fear flooded my veins again. This time the whispers seemed to rise, more urgent than ever. I wasn't alone after all. And whatever was here was waiting for us to make a move. The wind howled through the door left ajar, sending a shiver up my spine. I stepped back, heart racing as the shadows danced along the walls. The other veterans seemed frozen too, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and uncertainty. "Did you see that?" someone whispered, pointing at the open doorway. It's just the wind," I murmured, but my voice lacked conviction. The chill in the air felt more than just a draft. It was alive, pressing in on us, filling the cabin with an unsettling energy. Mark stepped forward, his tone firm. "We should close that door. We don't know what's out there." He slowly moved toward it, and my instinct screamed for him to stop. "Wait!" I grabbed his arm. "What if it's not just the wind?" He paused, then his brow furrowed. "You really think something followed you back?" "Something or someone," I replied, glancing back toward the darkness creeping in. The thought of that figure haunted me. He had looked so lost, like he belonged to the trees and the forgotten paths. Mark's fingers tightened around the doorknob, but he hesitated. The others hung back, whispers rising again, uncertainty building like a thick fog. "We can't stay here," someone finally said. "We should investigate." Just as the idea settled, another noise emerged. An unsettling rustle outside, like leaves disturbed by something moving. A heartbeat of silence followed, making the air thick and tense. My stomach twisted. "What was that?" one of the veterans asked, voice shaking. I think it's coming from the woods," Mark said, finally pulling the door closed. The latch clicked, but I wondered if it was enough to keep whatever was outside at bay. The whispers intensified. I felt the urge to understand what had drawn me back. I couldn't shake the feeling that something important awaited in the woods. "I need to go back there, tonight." My words spilled out before I had a chance to consider the consequences. Mark looked at me in disbelief. "You really want to? What if you encounter more than just whispers?" "I need answers, or at least to know what I'm dealing with." After a moment of indecision, he nodded slowly. "All right, if we're going, we go together." The others murmured their agreement, fear fueling our determination. As we gathered flashlights and gear, I stole another glance outside. The darkness felt heavier, almost suffocating. I gripped my flashlight tightly, the smooth metal cold against my palm. I wasn't sure what awaited us, but I knew we couldn't turn back now. We stepped cautiously outside, the ground crunching beneath our boots. The trees loomed ahead, stark silhouettes against the dimming sky. The whispers were wild now, swirling around us like a storm, a cacophony of warnings I could almost decipher. It was now or never. We formed a small line and moved into the woods, the familiar path obscured by shadows. I kept looking back, half expecting something sinister to leap from the darkness. And then I saw it, a glimmer of something reflective among the trees. My heart raced as I approached. That's when I saw it, the weathered edge of a military checkpoint sign half buried in the underbrush, just like the one I had seen earlier. But there was something different. I stepped closer and squinted. There were names etched into the wood, names I had never seen before, but somehow they felt familiar. Each one pulsed with the same urgency I had felt in the clearing. "What the hell?" Mark murmured, stepping up beside me. I turned to him, the realization settling deep in my chest. "We're not just dealing with shadows out here, Mark. We need to know what happened. Who were these people?" The murmurs of the forest seemed to swell around us, louder and more aggressive. We weren't alone in this darkness, but as I reached out to touch the sign, a deep growl reverberated from within the trees, and then everything went dark. I opened my eyes to darkness, but it wasn't the same quiet night I had expected. Panic surged through me. I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering. The growl echoed again, closer this time, mixing with an unnatural rustling that slithered through the trees. "Mark?" My voice came out hoarse. I couldn't see him or any of the others. The flashlight lay on the ground, its beam weak and flickering. "Here," he called out, the relief in his voice tempered with fear. "Stay close." I stumbled toward the sound, shaking off the disorientation. My flashlight flickered back to life, revealing Mark just a few feet away, his eyes wide and scanning the darkness. "We need to get out of here," he urged, breath hitching. But I wasn't ready to leave. My legs felt rooted to the ground, tethered to the names on that sign. "What if those names are connected to what's out there?" I said, voice low. "There has to be an answer." We were moving away from the cabin, deeper into the woods. I could feel the whispers again, threading through the trees, calling out to me. The desire to uncover the truth was overpowering. Before Mark could argue, another growl rumbled, deep and guttural. This time a shadow shifted in the corner of my eye. Something massive was moving among the trees. My instincts screamed. "We need to hide." Mark nodded, and we ducked behind a thick trunk. I could barely breathe, my chest tight. We pressed ourselves against the bark, the rough surface digging into my back. I peered around the edge. What I saw sent chills racing down my spine. A figure moved slowly through the underbrush, tall and emaciated, its limbs unnaturally long. It seemed to glide rather than walk, as if it were part of the darkness. "Is that?" Mark whispered, trailing off. "I don't know," I managed. "But we can't let it see us." I felt a knot in my stomach as the creature paused, its head tilting. It was listening, maybe even sensing us. I could see its eyes glimmering faintly, and I instinctively shrank back. Then, another sound broke through. It was faint but unmistakable, the sound of footsteps. We weren't alone in our hiding place. I turned to Mark, panic rising. "Did you hear that?" He nodded, eyes wide. "We're surrounded." We needed a plan. I thought desperately about the checkpoint sign. The names there, they were part of something that felt ancient. But who were they? And what did they want with us? Suddenly, the creature lunged, entangling itself in the shadows like a phantom. I barely had time to react when the break of branches consumed the silence. As the darkness engulfed us, the ground seemed to tremble underfoot. Then everything exploded into chaos. "Run!" I shouted. We burst from our hiding spot, adrenaline fueling every step. But in the back of my mind, another thought lingered. If we ran, would we ever uncover the truth about those names? Would we discover why the woods were haunted? Or would we become part of the legend ourselves? I didn't know. But we had to move, fast. The hunt had begun. We sprinted through the underbrush, feet barely touching the ground, branches whipping against our skin. Every rustle behind us felt like an impending threat. The growling had faded, but I could still sense something pursuing us, stalking us through the dark. "Where do we go?" Mark shouted, his voice strained. "I don't know," I gasped, glancing back over my shoulder. The fear in his eyes mirrored my own. This wasn't just a game anymore. Whoever or whatever was here with us wanted something. We veered left, aiming for what I hoped was a path. I could see faint hints of moonlight breaking through the canopy. My heart raced as we plunged into a clearing. "Look!" I pointed to a weathered structure that had once been a lookout post, its silhouette eerie in the moonlight. It looked abandoned but might provide us some shelter. "We should check there." Mark didn't hesitate. We bolted towards it, my mind racing. The names. Those names were the key, and I needed to remember them. Each one echoed in my mind, but all I could think was that we had to find safety first. We reached the structure. It creaked ominously as Mark shoved the door open. Inside, dust filled the air and the smell of decay hit me hard. The beam of my flashlight swept across the cramped space, revealing remnants of long-forgotten supplies. I could see old maps pinned to the walls, their edges curling. "Over here!" Mark called, his voice slightly steadier now. He found a window near the back, pointing it out. "We can see if anything is out there." Crouching down, I moved to peer through the grimy glass. The clearing was quiet for a moment, but then a flicker of movement caught my eye. Shadows danced just beyond the trees. "Do you see anything?" Mark whispered, crouching beside me. "Yeah, something's out there." My stomach twisted. I struggled to make out the shapes. Just then, a low growl cut through the air. It was closer now, rumbling like distant thunder. I turned away from the window, my hands shaking. What if it knows we're here? We can't stay trapped like this. We have to find another way out, Mark insisted. Maybe we can get to higher ground. We'll have a better chance of spotting a way back. Good idea, I replied, pushing past the fear. We needed to move. As we explored the room, I caught sight of the maps again. One near the window caught my attention. It was a map of the area from 5 years ago, marked with red crosses where sightings had occurred. My pulse quickened. Mark, look at this. He joined me, studying the map closely. These names, are they? It has to be. I traced my finger over the closest red marking. It was right near the checkpoint sign. These must be the people listed on that sign. That can't be a coincidence. Mark frowned, glancing nervously at the door. What if whatever is out there is connected to them? We need to figure it out. But just as I spoke, the growl erupted again, louder and more furious this time. It was followed by a crashing sound, branches snapping, making their way toward us. Now, Mark shouted. We raced toward a staircase leading up to an observation deck. My mind desperately pieced together the clues, but the growl was getting closer. I had to uncover the link between the names on the map and the creature hunting us. As I reached the top and turned to look for a way out, that's when I saw it. In that moment, everything shifted. I hadn't just uncovered a secret. I was about to uncover our fate. The view from the observation deck was disorienting. The moonlight spilled across the clearing, illuminating the edges of the woods. I could see the pathways carved through the trees, but they seemed to twist and turn, like a maze. I turned to Mark, my heart pounding. Do you see anything? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. His eyes widened, his gaze fixed on something beyond the trees. No, but I can feel it. It's out there. A chill ran down my spine. I looked back at the structure, half expecting to see the shadow of the creature creeping through the door. Instead, the darkness remained still, thick with the anticipation of something lurking. What now? I said, desperation creeping into my tone. Mark's mind was racing too. We could climb onto the roof. We need to see everything from above. If we can figure out where it is, we could slip away. Okay, but we need to be quick. I don't want to stay here another second, I replied, glancing nervously down the stairs. As we made our way up, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Each creak of the old wood felt like a countdown, ticking away our last moments of safety. Once on the roof, I cautiously crawled to the edge, scanning the ground below. The growling had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. Maybe it was gone. My heart clenched at the hope. Look, Mark pointed toward a darkened area in the woods. That's where the red cross is on the map. I squinted into the shadows, and my stomach turned. There were figures just barely visible, moving slowly. My mind scrambled for reasons, but all I could think was the names written in red were people lost. Do you see them? I whispered, backing away from the edge. What are they doing? Mark shook his head. I don't know, but we can't stay here. Before we could move, a crash rang out. A huge branch snapped, sending debris flying into the air. I turned to see what had triggered it. Then I saw it. a massive shape emerging from the shadows, low to the ground and hulking. My breath caught as I took in the creature. It was huge, covered in matted fur, and its eyes glinted with a predatory hunger. "Go! Now!" Mark screamed, snapping me out of my freeze. We scrambled back towards the stairs, adrenaline spiking through my veins. As we barreled down, I grabbed the map from a nearby wall, stuffing it into my pocket. It might hold more clues. Trying to stay silent, we rushed through the structure, hearts racing. But the moment we opened the door, a growl erupted behind us again, closer than ever. "Run!" Mark shouted, and we darted into the clearing, terrified but determined to escape. Just as we reached the edge of the trees, I felt something prickling at the back of my mind, a realization about the names on the map, something I should have noticed. That's when I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. We had stumbled into their territory, the territory of the things that had watched us that night 5 years ago. And the creatures weren't done hunting yet. The forest swallowed us as we ran, branches scratching at our arms and legs, trying to slow us down. Mark's feet pounded against the ground next to mine, the thundering sound of our hearts drowning out everything else. We didn't stop to look back. We couldn't. "We need to find cover," Mark yelled, but I could see the panic in his eyes. He didn't know where to go, and neither did I. That thought made my stomach churn even more. Then the growl came again. It ripped through the stillness, closer this time, reverberating in my bones. I risked a glance over my shoulder, and there it was. The creature, massive and shadowy, loomed between the trees. Its eyes glowed with a fierce light, locking onto us like a predator zeroing in on prey. "Left!" I shouted, veering onto a small path I barely saw in the dark. Mark followed without hesitation, staying just a step behind me. The underbrush crunched beneath our hurried feet, each snap echoing in the night. Adrenaline kicked in. I mentally scanned the area for anything that could help us. There had to be a place to hide, a fallen tree maybe, or a hollow in the ground. But as I darted through the trees, I realized they were unfamiliar. This territory had changed. I had been here 5 years ago, and yet everything felt new and threatening. Suddenly, I stumbled upon a clearing. It was small, with a few broken branches and a cluster of boulders in the center. "We hide here," I gasped, pointing at the rocks. We ducked behind them, our backs pressed against the cold stone and the forest wrapping around us. The growl faded slightly but didn't disappear. "What do we do now?" Mark's voice was shaky. "Just stay quiet," I whispered, trying to keep my breathing steady. I pulled the map out of my pocket, fighting against the urge to look at it. I remembered the names of the lost who had become another soul in this nightmare. That was when I spotted something on the map I hadn't noticed before. 3 red circles overlapping one another, right near where we had been. "Mark, look," I hissed, showing him the map. His eyes widened as he leaned closer. "What does it mean?" "I don't know. But we were near those spots when we saw the figures. They have to mean something." Just then, a rustling sound came from the bushes nearby. Fear clutched at my throat. I couldn't see anything, but the sound was unmistakable. Something was moving closer, sniffing the air. I could feel my heart racing against the silence, the weight of anticipation settling in. And then, like a bolt of lightning, I had a realization. I whispered urgently, "What if those figures were—" Before I could finish, a shadow shifted in the darkness, and the creature emerged again, closer than ever. It sniffed the air, searching for us. Instinct kicked in. "We need to move now." I pulled Mark up, shoving the map back into my pocket. As we darted away from the rocks, I had one last thought. The names on the map were not just losses. They were a warning. And if we didn't get out soon, we might become the next ones lost. We sprinted through the trees, the weight of the darkness pressing down on us. My mind raced as we maneuvered around glimpses of moonlight filtering through the branches. The creature was still close behind us, its growl echoing like a taunt. "Do you see anything?" I panted, trying to catch my breath. Mark shook his head, his face pale with fear. The panic in his wide eyes only added to my own anxiety. I glanced to the right, searching for a path or any sign of safety. Just then I saw it. An old building partially hidden by thick vines and moss standing like a ghost in the forest. "There," I yelled, pointing. "We can hide in there." We dashed towards it, the door hanging open like a gaping mouth. Inside, the air was stale. Dust motes danced in the shafts of moonlight that streamed through the cracked windows. The floor creaked beneath our feet as we stepped inside, and I quickly scanned the room. A few rusted tools and broken furniture cluttered the space, but there was a staircase leading down. "We have to go down," I urged, motioning for Mark to follow. We crept toward the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. The growl came again, clawing at my nerves. There was no time to hesitate. We descended into the darkness, the wooden steps creaking ominously with each movement. My skin prickled with fear as we reached the bottom. I could barely make out the outlines of old crates and barrels, remnants of whatever this place had once been. It smelled musty, but I didn't care. We needed to hide. Mark crouched beside a stack of crates. I motioned him to be quiet, and we huddled close. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady and fast. "What if it finds us?" Mark whispered, his voice barely audible. "I don't know," I confessed. "But we can't make a sound." A few tense moments passed in silence. The growl outside faded, replaced by a rustling sound above us. It was there, searching. I clutched Mark's arm, my breath catching as I noticed something glistening in the darkness. A row of old photographs lay scattered under a layer of dust. I picked one up cautiously, revealing a faded image. It was a group of soldiers, their faces smiling and carefree. A Marine checkpoint, as the words on the back read. I felt a chill run down my spine. 5 years ago we had been so close to this place, so close to whatever had watched us that night. "Look at this," I murmured to Mark, showing him the photograph. "What does it mean?" he asked, his eyes widening. I shrugged, unable to shake the chill crawling up my spine. Just then, I heard a loud crash above us, and my heart stopped. The weight of the creature's presence was suffocating. "It's coming down!" Mark's face turned grave. "What do? We can't just sit here." "Shh," I hissed, pressing a finger against my lips. My mind was racing. We had to move, but where? Before I could respond, a shadow loomed at the top of the stairs, growing closer. I felt my chest tighten. That was when I saw it, a flash of glowing eyes staring down. It sniffed the air, then began to descend. We needed a plan, and fast. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, the rhythm echoing my desperation. The creature lingered at the top of the stairs, its glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. I grabbed Mark's arm tightly, my instincts screaming at us to remain silent and hidden. The creature descended slowly, deliberately, as if savoring our fear. I cursed myself for not coming up with a strategy. Fighting back the urge to flee, I focused on the photographs scattered around us. Each snapshot seemed to echo their forgotten lives, the laughter frozen in time. It was haunting. "Wait," I whispered to Mark, adrenaline sharpening my thoughts. "We need to create a distraction." He nodded, his breathing rapid. I scanned the room, spotting an old metal barrel pushed against the wall, rusted with age. I pointed toward it. "If I can tip that over, the noise might draw it away." "Do it," Mark whispered, and I eased myself against the wall, sidestepping carefully until I stood by the barrel. I steadied my breath, ready to act. As I tipped the barrel, its weight shifted in slow motion. The clang ripped through the air, louder than I'd anticipated, and my stomach sank. The creature's attention snapped toward us, its head jerking around. I pushed the barrel again, sending it crashing to the ground. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline coursing through me as I dashed deeper into the shadows. Mark followed, our legs pumping, the growl now a feral echo behind us. I didn't look back as we navigated the labyrinthine passageways of the derelict structure, instinct guiding my movements. Each beat of my heart reminded me of the souls lost, the stories trapped within the names we had seen. Suddenly we burst through another door and emerged outside. The trees loomed overhead like towering guardians, blocking the last traces of daylight. My pulse raced. We'd made it out of the building, but we couldn't stop yet. "Where now?" Mark gasped, his breath forming clouds in the cool air. I hesitated, scanning the area. The whispers still seemed to swirl around us, urging me toward the checkpoint sign I'd seen before. "We have to reach the clearing again," I said breathlessly. "We might find answers there, potentially even a way out." Mark nodded, determination shining in his eyes, and we started running toward the clearing. The growl erupted from the woods, closer than ever, our only confirmation that we weren't safe yet. The path unfolded before us, the chaos of branches snapping underfoot melding with the frantic whispers filling the air. My mind raced, thoughts tangled with fragments of distant memories, a soldier's laughter, the feel of camaraderie, and the names etched in wood. Every heartbeat echoed the urgency of our escape. When we reached the clearing, I skidded to a halt, my breath hitching at the sight before us. The checkpoint sign stood there, the words now illuminated by the moonlight, the names glowing faintly as if alive. "What's happening?" Mark panted beside me, eyes darting around the perimeter. I felt the change in the air, a thickening tension surrounding us. "I don't know," I whispered, moving closer to the sign. "But I think something tied to these names, these lost souls, is haunting this place. It's connected." Suddenly, an anguished howl erupted from the woods, filling the clearing with an otherworldly resonance. The growl that chased us before had become a cacophony of voices, tugging at the fabric of the night. I reached out, needing to touch the sign to reclaim the stories lost to time. As my fingers brushed the rough wood, the ground trembled. A rush of energy surged through me, memory and emotion flooding back, images of soldiers, of fear, of loss. I could feel their presence as if they were warning me. "Pull away!" Mark grabbed my arm, straining against the force gathering around the sign. "We have to get out, now!" But I couldn't. I felt anchored, linked with the names and memories intertwined with the tales of despair and loss. A soft whisper brushed against my ear, echoing the words, "Help us. Help." My voice trailed off as shadows began to form around us, swirling with the whispers of the past. I felt the shift, the boundary between our reality and theirs blending together. The shadows took shape, manifesting as the figures I had seen before. Soldiers lost, dreams extinguished. "Make them hear," one shadowed figure implored, and panic surged within me. What did they mean? "Get away! It's too much!" Mark shouted, pulling me back. The grounding energy was overwhelming, and I could feel the strength of their presence beckoning me deeper into the darkness. With one last look at the figures, I grappled with the cold weight of history. Their stories were unfinished, overshadowed by the burden they carried. I'm sorry," I whispered, emotions clouding clarity. Finally, as Mark yanked me back, the shadows pulled fiercely to reclaim their hold on their past. I stumbled, losing my footing, and together we turned to run again, this time toward the light filtering through the trees, banishing the darkness. We broke free of that haunted sigh, a fresh wave of air filling our lungs, flows of energy dissipating as we savored the taste of freedom. I didn't know what we had left behind, but glancing back, I felt a bittersweet regret. We fled deeper into the forest, the whispers fading like an echo. I might never untangle the truth that lay hidden beneath the canopies. Some mysteries were destined to remain unsolved, for the ghosts of the past were still bound to this place. I moved to a different city afterward, trying to bury those memories. Once in a while, I'd hear a soft rustling outside my window, and my heart would leap. Each encounter still carried a hint of lingering unease, reminding me that while some battles might be won, echoes endure in the shadows. As for the names etched in that forgotten wood, their stories are still unknown to many. That truth hangs heavy in my heart. I know their whispers will forever be part of the dark I carry within.